welcome to this episode of Ask Don't Tell, where the best leaders in the world, whether you're a salesperson in corporate America, own your own business or company, you are truly impacting the lives of people and getting them in a way to take an action to say yes. But the people that really succeed in that are those that care about the people that they're talking about and show it. So today I have someone who is a master at that, and I'm so excited to have him on the show. Joel Worthington is a leadership speaker, author, and founder of systems that help reshape how they connect with their teams emotionally through intelligent conversations. He's crafted a leadership system called, and built on a simple idea, Tell Me More. So Joel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Oscar. I'm excited about being here.
Awesome. All right, Joel, so why don't you start us off? Because I hope I said that right and I didn't butcher it too much, but I'm really intrigued with what I've seen from your website and what I've seen from the research that we've done. It's all about tell me more. And here at Ask Don't Tell, that's what we teach in a way. So you're living what we teach, which is ask, don't tell. So I want to totally get your perspective on what exactly Tell Me More is and how you're helping people do that.
Yeah, I think we've discovered the same truth, right? And so certainly in the sales world, we learn to ask questions, right? Telling it and selling, asking is, right? So we get the idea that we're supposed to ask good questions. Leaders, however, jump to all sorts of shenanigans without understanding emotional intelligence. They don't understand how people actually make decisions, how we get buy-in, that people buy on emotion, blah, blah, blah. So, look, with sales and leadership, we're doing the same thing. Trying to influence someone to buy. A salesperson selling a product, a leader selling an idea, a philosophy, a process, a system, a new strategic initiative, whatever they're selling, but they're using all the wrong techniques, right? So they're going in with a bunch of logic and data, showing, with a crazy spreadsheets, and every slide's a bunch of numbers, and they're talking about their new initiative, and they wonder why employee engagement is only at 32%. They wonder why most of their company has a resume out looking for another job. They wonder why productivity is low. They wonder why margins and profits are low. You have no buy-in for anything you're doing because you're using the wrong approach. You're not connecting with the people. And by the way, with the data, we need the data to tell us more. I can't tell you how many people I've been involved with who pull up a bunch of data and make assumptions. Oh, this is off. We need to do X, Y, Z. You didn't ask the person who made that number happen, who can tell you the story. So you need the data. You need to ask the data, tell me more data. Who can I find that can really give me the information as to why, so that I stop making decisions based on assumptions, right? So it's just about going another level deep with everything. And by the way, the other biggest one is our people want us to tell them more. The lack of communication in organizations from leadership is astounding. Leadership is communication. Communication isn't leadership, but leaders at the core communicate. You think about like an organism. We're leading organizations. Organism has a central nervous system. Complex organisms have central nervous systems wiring up everything that are constantly giving and receiving communication. That's the way an organization works properly. So
Awesome.
the brain of most organizations isn't pumping out enough communication so that all the different parts know how to work together, and that creates chaos and confusion. All right, I'll stop.
No. So there's a lot to unpackage there, and one of the things that stood out to me is that what I'm kind of hearing from you is, as you know, first of all, you're absolutely right. Like when I talk about sales, I talk about at the end of it, getting others people to take some sort of action that you want them to do. But the world is sales. Like you don't have to be called a salesperson in order to be able to influence what you want them to do. And as leaders, and I think what happens is a lot of times really good salespeople get put in leadership positions, and now they think it's different. Now they think it's about being a directive, and they forget that they were successful through
That's
discovery.
right.
So, kind of what I heard there from you a little bit is leaders are used to, and I want to get a little bit deeper in this. Leaders become directive, and I always tell, really when I'm doing my trainings or when I'm working directly with companies, I said, look, you said it beautifully. We see these numbers and we say, oh, they must not be working. All right, or we need to take this new avenue, or we need to try this new project instead of doing first. You said it, and I'm going to use the word that I use, discovery. So I said, look, turn directive into discovery, where you first go and say, hey, tell me about what's going on, and instead of saying, hey, I'm assuming what's going on, so I need you to do this. So let's go there. I mean, how do you get leaders or companies as a whole to do this? Because it's a hard shift. I mean, it's a really hard shift. I mean, because a lot of leaders are micromanagers. They say they're not, but they are, right? They say they're not controlling, but they are. So how do
Yeah.
you get people? Why do they come to you to help them make that shift? And how do you do it?
Yeah, because they're frustrated, their margins are low, and they can't figure out what's working. Now, most leaders, first mistake is not taking accountability and responsibility, right? So they come in wanting their people to get better, right? It's all their fault. All right, all my sorry managers and directors and whoever, not realizing that you're creating all of that. You are in charge. You're responsible for everything. The way your organization looks is because you, right? So that's why they come in. That's what we need to help them change their mindset. Um, but number one is just the understanding of leadership. And we probably, a lot of business people, hopefully, John Maxwell popularized the statement in his book, The 21 Laws of Leadership. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Leadership is not titles, leadership is not positions, leadership is not authority, leadership is influence. Okay, some people have heard that, but they are not getting it, right? Because we're still directing and we still fall back on our authority. I said to do this. It's like your mama. Mama, why do I have to clean my room? Because I said so, right? And we fall back on
Right.
that authoritarian, I'm in charge thing, right? So one of the first things that one of my seminars is leaders have followers. Do you have followers or do you have employees? Because
Absolutely.
if the zombie apocalypse happened tomorrow, would anybody on that team actually follow you? If they wouldn't, you're not even a leader. You're a person with a position or a title. Leaders have followers.
Right. So there's no. I mean, this is such a. I mean, the thing is, like, sales is leadership, and life is
Yeah.
leadership, and life is sales, and 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 I mean, at the end of the day, like when you've got leaders who are successful because people follow. I mean, I'm a leader. I mean, besides what I do here, I build companies.
Yeah.
I mean, I help consult companies. I help leader. Like, I see these flaws, and what I've noticed is those people that are really good at connecting, and this is where you help, are really good at connecting and listening and making their
Yes.
team felt and heard and valued, have followers. and those that live in a micromanagement directive have employees seeking other avenues. So, you know, so but asking questions, like you said, tell me more, right? And asking questions, at least, and you might correct me here. I don't know of a bigger way or of a more valuable way that you can do this and start applying it today than just simply start asking questions. So I would imagine that a big part of your training is literally the tell me more instead of talking, start asking.
Yeah.
And dig until you find out so that I can help you. It's no different than a psychologist. It's no different than, and so it'd be like, go back to the example of saying, you're not going to tell someone, you got to buy this. They're going to walk
Right.
away. And it's the same thing with your team members. You got to do this. Well, so how do you mentioned something called guide. And so I'd like to know a little bit more about your process, because I would imagine that it's asking questions is a huge part, but I'm assuming there's not that, but somehow that built into your process of how you get that shift.
Yeah.
You said people aren't doing it. So how do you make that happen?
Yeah, the mindset's first, and then guide is the practical. So one part of what I do, I've been training and studying leadership for over 30 years, and there's nobody that tells you here's a step-by-step process of how to lead. It simply doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what guide is. Okay, so it's an acronym, and so I'll give it to you real quick. But G stands for generate relationships. You would call it build rapport in sales. Relationships are built on trust, right? So we need to make sure, and that's the leader, right? We need to make sure we're the right person, because trust is built on character and competency. Can they trust me because I'm trustworthy and because I actually know what I'm doing? One of the next things that a leader needs to do, a vision or a goal, is prerequisite. You're not a leader if you're not going somewhere. A leader needs followers. How do you get the followers? Well, following this process is also how you're going to get the followers. But third is we've got to create strategy. If we're going to make it to our destination, if we're going to build that $5 million business or a $100 million business or whatever we're doing, there's going to be obstacles. We've got to create strategy. So G stands for generate relationship, and then U stands for understand the situation. So that's where the big questioning comes in, right? And understanding the situation, we could throw that into categories: identity, intent, context, and capabilities, right? So everything. When I say understand the situation, I mean, are you on top of things, right? Are you on top of competitors, economics, all the things happening in your business, the people? Have you consulted with the people to get their insights? Have you given them a voice? I is identify goals, motives, and implications. Won't go into all that, but it's, again, asking questions. What's the goal we think we're trying to reach? Why are we trying to reach that? Hey, let's take a second to look at the implications of reaching that goal, because a lot of times goals and motives don't match. We create a goal because it's popular, right? I'm going to hit this, $5 million in total revenue and total sales next year. Why? Well, I don't know. How does that fit in with anything else that you're doing? What's your life plan? Why do you have this business to start with, right? Let's figure out what your motives are, because you'll find a lot of people that are pretty successful businesses, they can't get out of their business. They want to go fishing. They want to go on vacation. They want to stop working 7 days a week, but they keep setting a top line revenue goal. Well, the implications of that are more work, hiring more people, more. You're never going to get what you really want. Why don't we change the goal to work on leadership development and maybe more efficiency, higher profits? Why don't we work on that so you can go fishing and get what you really want, right? But you and I lead to D, developing strategy. All right. So if we follow this plan, and then E is execute and manage the strategy. All right. So every day, what leaders do is make decisions all day long. How do we do this? How are we going to handle this? Hey, this just happened. What do we do? It's constant. Every one of those little micro decisions or micro strategies, the little decisions are what add up to destroy most leaders. And if we just follow the system every time, have I really stopped to understand and ask enough questions so I'm not going to go, man, Oscar just came into my office with this, blah, 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 and oh my God, I got all emotionally involved in it. And I said, hey, call Susie and Jim and make this happen right now, boom. And now we just blew up the whole company. And I didn't even check the other sources to see what their perspective was. Hey, Oscar's a great guy and I love him, but we all have perspectives. And they're not necessarily right or wrong, but they are perspectives. And I should have stopped to to call some other people to really deeply understand the
Right.
situation, right? To really go back to what's the goal here? Is this fit in with what we're doing? And now I can make a great strategic plan and strategic decision because I stopped and asked the questions. And now I can, you think of a sports team, football, you're going to go play, whatever team next week. All right, you're really not going to watch any film of the other team or your team. You don't really understand the situation at all. You're just going to walk in, you expect to win. But that's what business leaders do every day. In fact, salespeople that don't understand the situation and do their homework on their clients sometimes make those kind of mistakes as well, um, because we're
Right.
not really understanding the the situation, the needs, what's happening, and now putting all that together to make a winning strategy.
There's a couple really good things that I want to point out there that that you brought out. So leaders, you mentioned about it isn't just in yourself and in the company. It isn't just about asking questions to your team, but really you were saying we're not only asking questions to your team, but we're asking questions to ourselves. So as leaders, and for example, you mentioned salespeople. Well, most salespeople, in a way, kind of have their own little business, even if they're working for someone else, because they're leading their own charge, and they may have leaders above them. But a lot of salespeople are very independent and isolated. So even if it's salespeople or just leaders in general, it's not just asking the questions to others, but you said some really good things. Asking the questions about why are we even doing this? Like, if you're a salesperson and you're chasing, $500,000 in commissions, but you don't see your family, you're about to get divorced, your kids hate you. Like, you need to stop and ask yourself the questions, make yourself discover within yourself. But it's the same thing. I mean, I know CEOs who say, "Hey, I was happily married before. Now, we're having these really weird conversations with my because they're never home, right? They're traveling all the time. So they're again they're giving directives, they're asking questions, but they're not asking questions themselves. And it all really ties down to really what are those unintended consequences of living in a directive, go 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 push world without, like you said, stopping and using your guide to say, look, what's the goal? Why am I doing this? What's the plan? And what's the next action step to actually achieve that? I mean, it's wonderful and beautiful. This is what you do. What's the biggest obstacle that you have when, because I mean, this is a problem. You have to have someone fully in to want to do this in their lives. You have to have someone fully in, a corporation, a leader that says, look, I'm going to do this. What is the biggest obstacle you face when at the end of the day you're dealing with human beings that even if you teach them, like I can teach you to be a great closer, but you're gonna default back to, oh, please buy today. How do you get your leaders to not only buy into this, but actually do it despite them being human beings that are going to default to their own personalities.
Yeah. Well, and default to what we naturally think of leadership being titles, positions, right? It's the reason we fall back is because it's too easy for me just to tell you what to do. Just like with our children, it's too easy just to say you're going to do this,
Yeah.
or you're going to get punished, right, in some way because and we don't explain the why. We don't help them understand and be motivated, inspired to do the right thing. It's just too easy to tell people what to do. So that's the biggest obstacle there is. So the way that we have to do that is help people really understand how. That's why I spent a lot of time on the philosophical ideas, right? So let's think of this very simply. I have an organization. You have an organization. Everybody on this call has an organization, whether it's their own sales company, whether they're a sales manager, or whether they're a leader of an organization that sells, right? We're where we are today, and we want to be somewhere else in the future, right? We want to be in that we want to be bigger, stronger, faster, more efficient, more productive, whatever it is. We have goals. All right, well, that means that we're moving, okay? And movement requires energy. And it is what nobody talks about in leadership. Our greatest resource is energy, and where does the energy come from? The people. When we don't stop to get buy in and get their hearts, to get them to believe in us and what we're doing in our company, and feel uh, significant, like that they make a difference every day, they're showing up for a paycheck. And we all know the people who show up for paychecks.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost 70% of the U.S. workforce is showing up for a paycheck. What does that mean? That means, well, that ain't part of my job description. That means it's 4:49 and I'm already packed and ready to head out the door because I can't wait to get the heck out of here. And I show up at 8 or 8:15. Right? We get the minimum. We're getting this much energy. And if we would do this right and connect, ask the questions, sell our ideas, help inspire people, help motivate, what's in it for me, right? That's what salespeople do all day, where we ultimately find the needs and then share the features and benefits of what we have and match those. Here's what you want, here's what I've got, here's why it helps you get what you want, right? If we would just stop and do that with our people, now we up the energy level in every individual that works for us. And now we're being more efficient, we're being more productive, we're being more creative, we're making more money, we're reaching our goals, and life is so much easier on us. Because when that happens, God, I could talk to you for hours and hours, but there's certain things that happen in our universe, right? Energy, it vibe, right? Everything's energy, okay? And because everything's energy and everything's made up of atoms, this big giant rock we live on planet Earth is energy, right? It's ultimately a bunch of atoms spinning around, holding it together, being a rock. And everything is energy. Light's energy, sound's energy, everything's energy. It means everything vibrates. And when things are, so music is the easiest way to look at this. If you, strings of a guitar, if they're not tuned, it's a horrible sound. And it's repelling, it's repulsive. We call it dissonance, right? Discord, chaos. Does that describe most businesses? Right? Because when we
Let me stop you
take the
there for a second
time to ask,
because you're
well, let me just finish this one little point. When we take the time to ask and we get people all working together, we create harmony. And you just say that word and it makes you go, oh man, I like that word, right? Great music attracts people. Now then, we solve our recruiting and retention problem because people want to be there. Everybody's working together. Of course, you're never going to have perfect, but way different from a lot of companies that are just full of arguments, frustration, chaos, people throwing things around, cursing people out, right? That's what most organizations consist of. And it's all just because we don't
Yeah.
understand that little principle and we're killing ourselves, man. We're shooting ourselves in the foot.
Joel, like, I want to make sure that people understand that, like, what you're saying isn't like, oh, theory and the world doesn't really work like this, because there's a lot of people listening to say, oh, well, it's not really like that, and I'm telling you, it's like that. Like, Joel is spot on. I mean, if you have, I mean, if you're a small business owner, like, so, all my life I've been an entrepreneur, all my life I've been business owner. I built, companies. But if you're taking about a small business owner and you've got, a couple of employees, and you've, but think about it. Let's. I want to get on my soapbox here for a second. Like, if you're that small business owner that started your business as, hey, I was selling something, because most business owners
Yeah.
started their career selling
Yeah.
something, right? And then that business, of which they cared for people, which is why they started doing it in the first place, which is why they started selling whatever they sold in the first place, and they asked questions and they were passionate about it. But then one day that business becomes numbers. That business becomes a P&L, just like you said. Well, I want to grow the business, but I no longer go fishing. Now it's a P&L. And they forget that their employees and their team members, they don't most of them don't want to be the owner. Most of them don't want to be the CEO. Most of them just want to enjoy their lives, see their kids, and be valued. So you're going to, I went from business owner to now I'm a director and I'm giving directives, and I can't figure out why people don't want to work with me. So there's one side of it, right? And I'm sure you're resonating with. But let's go to a big corporation. So let's say you're on the other side of that. Let's say you're a big corporation. Like, this is more common than people understand. Let's say you're a big corporation. Let's say your whole life you've been a team member. And you're always saying, well, they don't listen to me. I'm not valued. I'm not loved. It's just a directive. I'm told what to do. And then one day you get that opportunity. And I've seen this over and over and over and over. And I can name you 20 people that I know like this. They once they get that position, instead of remembering how they felt
Yeah.
and what gave them value, which they complained of their whole life, now they become the
Yep.
directive, and they don't care about
Yep.
people. So I've seen this everywhere. I've seen CEOs walk into buildings and not say a single word to someone because they're the
Yep.
CEO. And I questioned him on this, like, shouldn't you have just, like, oh no, well, I don't have time to do that. I've seen entrepreneurs that have large businesses that won't take the time to, to have a meal with their team members. Like, if this is really, you hit a hard spot, because I just want people to understand how common this is. So what would be that basic principle that you could give us today, they could, everyone listening, that they could get better at it, like just a little bit better at it today? I mean, what would you tell people? Like, this is real.
Yeah.
You can make an impact in the world if you can get better at this today. What would it be?
Yeah. It would be stopping and asking and empathetically, truly listening, not going through the motions, right? You ask the question, then you start jacking around with your cell phone while they're giving you the answer. Put the phone down, be present, right? And understand that your people are greater and wiser than they appear to be. And if you're not tapping into that wisdom, you're you're what is the opposite of wisdom, and that is a fool, my friend, because you're
Yeah.
you're hurting yourself and all these old things. Yeah, I'm old, right? I was told things like you can't get close to your people, you're all sorts of weird stuff, right? You can't go out to dinner, you can't go have a beer. We've thrown most of that stuff out, but still people kind of a little bit live in that idea that I got to put on my mask when I go to work. That's why your people aren't following you. It's because you put on the mask. What are you hiding?
Yeah.
Then, if you,
Yeah.
yeah, just ask the question,
Yeah.
slow down, take a deep breath, because one of the things that happens that makes this so real, and it's why so many small businesses never grow, right? It's the number one reason small businesses don't grow is because they can't take those two, three, four people that work for them and get their heart and get their energy and help them grow. And here's one of the biggest things that happens with a big corporation, small business. It's stress and pressure, right? In the corporation, you got somebody above you. I don't care who you are. If you're the CEO, you report to the board. If you're the chief operating officer, you report to the CEO. I don't care who you are, you report to somebody, and you're stressed out. And now you're coming in, got to get this done, right? So now you have a tendency to bark orders, to take shortcuts, right? Got to get this done. Oscar, dude, I've asked you 5 times for this. Go get it done. Stop it. Stop. Say, Oscar, could we talk, man? Help me understand what's going on. We talked about you completing this the other day. Can you tell me what's happening from your perspective as to why this hasn't happened? Right? Because two things are at play here. Number one, Oscar probably has some really good reasons that he's been afraid to come to me and tell me as to why he can't get this project done. Or, second off, Oscar sucks. Okay, and I've tried to reach Oscar and I've tried to do everything for Oscar. I've given him raises. I've tried to inspire him, and I can't get through to Oscar. I'm still the leader. I'm responsible for Oscar. Oscar, brother, we need to talk about giving you a new opportunity, right? So those are the two scenarios. But generally, it's number one. We create fear. So when we create fear, we enact. You probably talk about oxytocin and dopamine and all that stuff in the sales process. The fear creates adrenaline, right, and fight or flight. So we're not safe. So we're not safe to tell the truth. We're in protection mode. So now we're using all of our energy towards the wrong stuff, right? It's called CYA, right? Cover your ass. And that is the theme of most businesses, and people are spending more time covering their ass and covering up because they're afraid to tell the truth. Now we got the leader running around making decisions based on half truths and very little knowledge because we screwed the whole thing. We create the right environment. Oscar would have already came to
Right.
me last week and said, "Hey, dude, I'm supposed to be doing this project for you. It's due next Thursday. Let me tell you what I'm running into," because he wouldn't have any fear of doing that because he knows I'm reasonable, rational. I believe in him, and I'm here to work to help him win. When we don't have that environment, Oscar's covering up. Now, if he wants to get it done, he's going to half-ass it, right? And usually the leader is separated enough from the details so he doesn't even know that Oscar half-assed it, and and that this stuff is not going to work. But hey, he got it done on schedule because he was afraid not to because he knows he was going to get reamed out if he didn't, right? It's toxic, man, and it flows downhill. It's just like going to that bar and got that band playing that can't play, and if you've been to if you're a church person, when I was little in the little old churches, there'd be some family that's been a member of the church for 80 years, right? And one of the ladies wanted to sing a solo on Sunday, and she can't sing, but they're an important family, so we're gonna let her get up there and and literally want to run for the hills. Bad music is repulsive, and that's the way most companies work. Think about this real quick. One last little illustration. Rock brand. Let's say Led Zeppelin back in the 70s. I can't remember
Right.
where they were. 100,000 crowd. The crowd doesn't show up for the band playing good music and just sit there. You go, man, this is really good. They're really hammering out some good tunes here. No, they become a participant in the band. They sing, they clap.
So I think we lost Joel, but we'll get him back in a second. So there's Joel saying some really good stuff there, and I think what we need to do is think about what it is that we can really get out of this episode, and that is primarily a couple things. One is that I know so many people that live in the tell world, and ultimately what Joel's saying is, look, you need to have rapport, you need to connect, you need to ask, don't tell, because ultimately, we're we're using different wording to say the same things that we're saying, which is, if your team members don't feel, and the same thing, if your clients or your customers, whoever you're selling to anything, don't feel like you care about them. Like Joel said it wonderfully, you ask a question, but you're on your phone or you're already thinking about the response instead of listening. Ultimately, people aren't going to follow you. They're not going to buy from you. They're not going to respect you. And it's not just in sales, but it's general as a leader. Like, I've seen so many companies and so many leaders that they can't keep employees. They just can't, because exactly what Joel's saying. And I'll tell you, I own one company that I've had people working with me for over 20 years. Why? Because I'm a leader that listens. I'm not a leader that gives directives. I'm a leader that listens. Now, sometimes directives are necessary, but as a leader, do you live in a world of control, or do you live in a world of asking the right questions to come up with the right solutions that help people, that ultimately create the best value, not only for their lives, but your customers and clients? So if you're out there listening, selling, doing whatever you do, stop and take the moment to ask, don't tell. And Joel's right. There will be good energy around you. People will want to come with, in closing intelligence, what I talk about, if you ask people the right questions, if you take an interest in their lives, whether you're a leader or they're your clients or someone that you're trying to sell some, if you simply ask the right questions and connect with them, guess what? There's good energy. They want to do business. They don't want to buy from you. They want to do business with you. And people want to work with you because there's good energy in the room. So if you have any other questions about Joel Worthington and how you can connect with him, please go to joelworthington.com. Find out more and about his leadership and his leadership programs. On my end, ask, don't tell. We could never get Joel back, but that's okay. At the end of the day, it's all about asking the right questions so that you connect with people, and that's what Ask, Don't Tell is all about. I think we had a great show based on that today. So keep listening to the show. We're going to have some great guests coming up. And don't forget, live in an Ask, Don't Tell world and see what it does in your life. I'm Oscar Subarats. Connect with me at closingintelligence.com, oscarsubarats.com, or keep listening to the show. Have a great day.